shortcut for everything, and there's no shortcut. You've got to do it in steps. You've got to put in the work to create the longevity, to create the adaptability in your system. And that might be doing a 1-day fast once a month to start, and then maybe once a week after that as you build up, and then maybe 3 days a month consecutively, like so 3 days once a month, and then maybe 5 days once a month. And it just creates a more adaptable, resilient system. Your insulin resistance drops, because that's really the precursor to diabetes. And the adaptability that it creates a more resilient system, and we have become healthier. And it does take work. And unfortunately, in our current culture, most people don't want to do the work. They want an easy way, an easy hack. They're always like, that's all the, the marketing. See, hack your metabolism, hack your life hacks, hack this, hack that. There are no shortcuts, period. Just know this. There are no shortcuts. So, speaking of shortcuts and no shortcuts.
Let's talk about multitasking.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought we were talking about looking confident.
We are, but I wanted to talk about.
Yes, we made a little boo-boo in our Facebook, in our email messaging to our audience. We apologize. That was my fault. I'll wear this one. I was running around trying to multitask, and of course, we know when we multitask, we just half-ass everything instead of whole-assing one thing. And I put up the wrong content on Facebook, forgetting to look at what the email that we were sending out this week was going to be about. So I apologize, and we will cover multitasking next week. So be with us next week for that.
Right. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, if you're subscribed to our email list, our email tells you that we are going to talk about multitasking, and our Facebook tells you we're going to be talking about 7 ways,
because I've got a special bonus one that I didn't tell you about.
Okay, good. 7 ways to look more confident. So what we're going to do is talk about confidence today, how to look more confident. We're going to send you the same email next week with an oopsie, and we're going to talk about...
We might change it up a little bit.
Yeah, okay. And we're going to talk about multitasking. So you're here to hear about multitasking, how it doesn't work, and we're here to prove that. And now we're going to...
I think we just did.
Just proved it. So Cindy, I want to thank you. I said we would cover both. That's covering it. And we're going to go into how to look more confident during a presentation.
All right. So why don't we start with why it's important to look more confident during the presentation?
All right. Let me give a couple of examples here.
Sure.
Energy, wrong perspective, wrong angle, not looking into the camera. Okay, why? Why is any of that important? Why would you want to look up my nose or at the top of my head? Or why would you want to look at the side of my face? Why would you want to look at me looking at the computer screen and not look at me looking at you? So why is it important? Well, if I put myself in your shoes, I want to think about, why would you want to listen to me? Do I sound good? Is it appealing? Am I looking at you? And how you appear is a reflection of you, your company, and everybody else around you. So get yourself straight, set yourself up. And the reason why, look confident, so people will believe in you the way you believe in you. Would you like to add to that?
I would. And what I'd like to say is, when you look more confident and start to do what you're doing, presenting more from a more confident place, you will actually end up being more confident. And it becomes this circle. It goes around and around. You do actions that help you be more confident, and at this while you're being in front of a room or on camera, and then you start to believe and feel more confident. Then you do more actions or behaviors or mindset shift to be more confident, and then you become more confident. And then so it becomes this cascading to a positive place of being more confident. And when we become more confident, we can get our message across more easily. We can connect with our audience much more easily, and our audience will be more engaged with us because they have the perception that they can trust us and that we are confident in what we're saying. So before we go into the 6 techniques, would you like to introduce ourselves?
Sure. I'll introduce myself today.
Oh, and before that,
Okay.
I just want to say good morning, Jay. Welcome to the stream.
Good morning. Good morning. Isn't there a song? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for being here with us. I will talk to you first. All right. My name is Rara. Rara's in the house, everyone. I'm in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, Canada. It is spring, and I am thrilled about being here. I am the co-producer, co-writer, co-executive producer, co-CVO, and I'm the co of BU Network, and I'm here with my awesome partner, Dr. Energy.
Thank you, Rara. I'm Joe, Dr. Energy Piazza, and I come by the moniker Dr. Honestly. I am a doctor of chiropractic, and as Rara has named me, Doctor of Powerful Energy, or Dr. Energy for short. And we're here to help you have conversations worth having with your audience, to give you tools and strategies that you can take and use in your own presentations, your own communications, your own interactions, and building the relationships in your business and in your life.
We're actually here to have a conversation worth having, so that by example, once you hear that and say, yes, all right, you two do have a conversation worth having, then you can decide if you want to jump on with us, because we have a few ways that you can speak with us on our podcast, on our YouTube. You can speak with us right here, sort of a digital conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We're very happy to do that. And if you want to get a little bit closer, then we can step into the podcast and the green room and do that with you. This is a subject I really enjoy. Dr. Energy, you do this so well when we do our on-stage presence. I'll start with, we'll name some of these
strategies.
Yes. Okay. We'll talk about, what does trustworthy and truthful look like when you're using some body language? Let's talk about the box. So how about I identify it and you explain it? You okay with that?
Okay.
All right, awesome. So the box has an emotion that it will give you, and that will be trustworthy and truthful. And I would like Dr. Energy to give you the live demonstration of that.
Just limber up here a bit first.
All right, ready?
Okay.
All right,
so
go.
The box. The example that we like to give is Bill Clinton. When Bill Clinton first started giving speeches, he would use big, wide gestures that would either go out of frame if you were on camera, or they were so expansive that didn't feel not necessarily natural or trustworthy. So what his advisors had him do was think of a box. You've got this box in front of you, and you keep your gestures inside that box so they don't become too big. They become more focused, and that energy that you're projecting out has a more focused effect, and you can connect with the audience more. There are a few other ways to use the box, such as palms up versus palms down or pointing. They all communicate differently, and they all send a different message, and we can talk about that maybe at the end. It's not the bonus piece that I have for you, but it is another little piece that we can add in.
I love how you're using the bonus as a carrot today. You're so cagey, Dr. Energy.
I learned. It's about, it's about keeping not only our audience engaged, it keeps us engaged, because I have to keep remembering not to give the bonus away. And my brain as well wants to go, I want to get to the bonus, because like I know our audience out there, their mind's going, what's the bonus? What's the bonus? Because our brain always wants to answer that question, right? The unanswered question. So.
Such a great strategy. Let's talk about holding the ball. Now, sometimes people say you don't want to be left holding the ball, yet when you are holding the ball, it represents a commanding and a dominant stance. Dr. Energy, why don't you give us a demonstration?
All right. So holding the ball is, imagine that you're actually holding like a basketball or a beach ball in your hands. How you would hold it is with your hands, with your fingers spread, palms probably slightly up a little bit, and you're holding the ball in front of you. So I'm going to hold it up because I'm on camera. If I was standing, I would have my hands down lower around my waist. And it just gives the appearance that you've got the world in your hands. So when we say control, it doesn't mean we're trying to control what everybody else is doing. It's that we are in control of what we are saying, what we are doing, what message we want to give. And all of these feelings that we receive as the audience as a result of seeing a speaker use these presentation strategies is that we feel at ease, we feel we can trust them, we feel that and it's all at a non-conscious, below our conscious mind level. Even when we know what they're doing, we still respond to it on a non-conscious level. Rara. You're muted. Live streaming.
Mute button. Okay, you mean when I say unmute, it doesn't just happen like that.
Not yet. You could set it up that way.
I want to clap my hands and do that. Are you a person who flips and fidgets? And if you are a flipper and a fidgeter, this tip is for you. This will give you the impression, or will give others the impression, that you are self-assured and relaxed. So even if you're not, think about using pyramid hands.
Right. And pyramid hands, we want to make sure that when we do it, so this is pyramid hands, and we just hold it again, either sitting here, I could just sit here like this with my hands in a pyramid, and it just shows that we're relaxed. Now, there are some of us, me included, who tend to talk a lot with our hands, and our hands are going everywhere. And this is something, again, that I've learned through Toastmasters, is how to take those movements and focus them more so that they're purposeful, and that I'm not just gesturing willy-nilly or just pacing around the stage. So just by bringing my hands together, like this, I'm relaxed, I'm self-assured, I'm calm. Again, I'm in control of the situation. See what I did there? Holding the ball and pyramid hands together. Now, when you're doing these gestures and using them to help yourself feel relaxed, because this will help us relax as well, you want to make sure you're not having, what was that term they had, Rara, before, about resting something face, resting biatch face, right? Or resting business face. We've seen this all on Zoom recently, right? People are just sitting there like this, and we get no read facially of what their emotion is. So you want, if you imagine now that I'm sitting here with a smile on my face, I'm open and I'm ready to go, versus if I use resting business face with my hands like this, and see what you feel differently when I do this versus this. It has a different feel to it. So make sure when you're using some of these gestures, you remain open and at ease.
You almost scared me there for a little bit. I love that you smiled and you made that distinction.
How about this one? Wait a sec. You want to add some fun to this? Watch.
Sure. Of course I want to add some fun to that.
I don't know if you want to use those gestures when you're streaming or not, but
And are you in a pyramid scheme? All right, let's talk.
Definitely not.
I know you're not. Let's talk about our mindset and how our mindset plays a big role in how we stand. Do you believe that you exude confidence and that you're in control? And if you don't think you do, let's show you a stance, just like in karate, a stance that will instill that in others and in yourself.
Okay, so this one's going to be a little harder to do because we are sitting down. Is essentially what you would like to do is stand in a slightly wider stance. So feet about hip width apart to maybe just a little bit beyond. And the feeling that conveys is that you're solidly planted there, not easily knocked over. Think of cowboys in the Old West when they would duel in the middle of the main street, if you will, at high noon, right? They'd be standing there, legs would be apart, arms apart. So, but we want to be a little bit more relaxed than that, not on edge. Just with let our arms kind of hang akimbo, as they call it. So the elbows are slightly bent and hanging at our sides, and our feet are about hip width apart. It just, again, gives the feeling of solidity, of presence, that you're here and you're ready to go. And again, it helps us feel like we're in control, relaxed, and assured.
I'm thinking about Sebastian Maniscalco and how he presents and how he talks in his car and on his Instagrams, and he's like making these faces like, you know, my wife did today, you know, my wife bought on Amazon today. And he gives you these eyes and this look like he's talking to you only.
Right.
So let's talk about this.
Before we go there, I just wanted to comment on Cindy's comment about how, for more important, informal type Zoom meetings, she stands because it gives her better energy. And yes, I absolutely agree that standing conveys a different energy. And this is why when I'm doing lives and I'm sitting, and I've actually have done some research. I'm looking at some sit-stand desks so that I could actually stand while we're doing this. You can actually buy just the legs and pair it with a desktop that you already have. So it brings the expense down a fair bit from like, you know, $1,500 or $1,200 down to like $300 or $400, and motorized as well, not a manual crank. So when we are doing these and I'm sitting down, I actually lock my chair in the upright position and I sit right in the chair and keep my body erect so that I can have that energy flowing top down and bottom up, so that I can project more energy rather than sitting like this around the microphone. And then your neck comes all hunched, and by the end of it, you're going to feel like crap. So I always make sure that I'm sitting up and I have my elbows just resting lightly on the armrests when I'm not speaking, or even sometimes when I am speaking, just because it keeps my shoulders in the right position. So yes, standing is much more preferable. And I know for both Ra and I, we like to move on the stage and have much more body movement. And so standing definitely conveys a different type of energy.
And I'll add to that, prior to moving to this home, all of my broadcasting and meetings, I was standing. And in this house, I have 2 rooms with hard wires. One, I'm hardwired to stand in the other room, and here I'm hardwired to sit. So I agree, it's important to be able to change that energy flow. It makes a difference. People can hear it.
Yes.
And let's talk about honesty and openness. When we're talking about Sebastian Maniscalco, he makes you really feel, or you allow yourself to feel that he's speaking to you and that he's honest and that he's open. So if you want to create, an image, maybe you don't really feel it, but I encourage you, I invite you to work on this. Honest and accepting position. Dr. Energy is going to demonstrate this, and you can practice it. And we can all practice it together if you wish. Sitting or standing. You want to be able to execute this move.
Right. So basically, we talked about this a little bit earlier about the different hand positions we can use when we're doing the holding the ball technique. The palms are slightly up and open. So when we stand or sit and talk with our palms open, it's a much more open gesture. It's a much more welcoming gesture. You remember the Obama hug? When he would talk, he'd have his palms up and he'd reach his arms out and kind of air hug. So this is a technique we can use, and it brings our audience in. So when we give this kind of emotion, it brings everybody in together. When we bring, and I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit here. When we use our palms down, it's a more dominant position. Do you know the term? I've got the upper hand. That's where that comes from shaking hands. When you shake hands with somebody, you know within a moment the connection that you have with somebody. If you shake hands and you get the same pressure back from the person as you're giving, you're going to have a good connection there. Also, that you're more likely to have the hands remain vertical. If you cut somebody who comes in with the hand even, and I'm going to exaggerate, more on top as you're shaking hands. If you don't correct for that, you're going to feel like that person's already got the upper hand. And no matter what happens in your interactions with that person going forward, they're always going to have the upper hand, and you're always going to be the quote unquote submissive person. Then there's also the finger pointing. And the finger pointing, how does this feel when I do this? Do you feel like you're being rapped on the top of the head? You dummy. Right? This is telling people what to do versus directive versus inviting people to do something. So how we use our hands as we're talking makes a big difference.
Thank you for that. I wanted to bring this palms strong, assertive, palms down. We'll go back to that for a moment.
Absolutely.
Because this can be a very positive move as well.
Yes.
So you're thinking, I'm not strong in this subject, or I'm really learning this. I'm not sure how to make that move. This position here can give you the impression, or give the other people that are looking at you and yourself, the impression of authority and assertiveness. So the opposite movement of palms up is also viewed positively. And I'd like to know if you can demonstrate that. And also I'll add, can you also demonstrate the two-handed handshake?
The two-handed handshake.
And someone shakes your hand, and they shake your hand, and they put their other hand right over that.
Oh, okay. So the palms down and imagine that when you are giving a presentation, you want to build up the energy, and you're getting excited, and you're lifting your hands up, and you're going higher, and you really build the energy. And then you want to bring the crowd, your audience, back down and quiet down. Then that's when you bring your hands and you put them palms down. Right? What happens when you see at a music concert, or somebody gives a rousing speech and everybody gives a standing ovation, and then they want to continue or they feel embarrassed by it? What do people do on stage? They palms down, like, okay, let's settle down, right? We do this. Teachers do this in the classroom all the time. Okay, class, settle down. So it's giving a directive to say, okay, let's settle down, just quiet down. Or if there's a crisis happens, we want to be able to okay, everybody just calm down. We're going to be okay. We're going to use the exits over here, and everybody over here is going to use the exits over there. So versus if I said there's a crisis, okay, everybody calm down. We're going to use the exits over here and the exits over there. It has a different feel to it. It's going to be every man for himself if I do this. But if I do this, and say, okay, just let's calm down. We're all going to be okay. We're all going to get out of this. This group is going to use the nearest exit over here, and this group over here is going to use the other exit over there. Now it helps us calm down as an audience, and it helps us focus on what we need to do next to exit this crisis. The two-handed handshake. So that's when somebody comes in, they're shaking your hand, and then they take their other hand and they're grasping your forearm. Okay, so it can be a bit of a dominance thing. Donald Trump has been famous for this. He would go to shake your hand, and then he'd pull you towards him, trying to pull you off balance, again, trying to establish dominance. One of the things that the two-handed handshake is actually about, it comes from ancient times. And even the original handshake was done differently in Roman times. So I'm going to start there. Originally, what would happen is after battles and the winning army, the generals and the captains would all get together, and they would actually, do a handshake this way, so their hands are above, and they would do it squatting. So they would be, giving the high five like this, and then squatting. And whoever ended up with the upper hand, their men would get first access to the spoils of the war, looting the treasure, the meals, the baths, all of that kind of thing. Then when we started standing upright, the hands came down below the waist, and you still have the upper and lower hand. But also the handshake originated where you would actually clasp the person's wrist like this. And the reason being is you wanted to know if the person you were shaking hands with or about to do a deal with had anything up their sleeve, because many warriors and people would carry knives up their sleeves, and some of them were even spring loaded, so they could just flick their wrist and it would jump into their hand, so they could stab you. So you wanted to know that that person had nothing up their sleeve. So that's where that even the two-handed handshake, when we started just shaking the hand, the other hand on the wrist was about finding out if you got anything up your sleeve, so to speak.
Nothing up this sleeve, nothing up that sleeve.
Exactly.
Let's continue with this. Thank you for that. Let's continue with non-verbal communication as we are right now. I think we have time for that. Oh, you have to give your bonus.
I want to we got to give the bonus. We can't leave everybody hanging.
Yeah. Okay, give it now. Don't give it later.
Let's give the bonus now, and then we can talk about nonverbal if we still got time after that, because I think you're going to have something to say about what I have to say, because I know I'm springing this on you a little bit.
Okay.
So the seventh way to look more confident during a presentation. All of the techniques or strategies that we've shared with you so far are amazing at helping you feel more confident, helping you feel more relaxed and assured, and helping you feel more in control of the situation, so that you can then project that to your audience, so that then they feel assured and can trust and confident in you. Now, there's one simple way to actually convey all of these things without having to focus and get in our heads about, am I standing correctly? Am I using my hands correctly? Am I moving correctly? Am I saying the right thing? And that's this. And I know Catherine will be right on board with this. Get in the mindset of being there to serve your audience. Before you give the presentation, connect with the organizer, saying who is going to be in the audience. What do they most want to learn about this topic of, for example, presenting and how to look confident? What do they most want to know? And then design your presentation around that. And think to yourself, as you're putting the presentation together, okay, this is the information that my audience wants. How can I best present it for them in how many different ways? Audio, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, auditory, digital, the different types of learning and communicating that we all have. How can I bring all of these tools so that my audience can get the most information and remember and recall the information, so they can then take it and use it in their life? Because if we just present information, it's just information. Knowledge comes with understanding and implementing that information. And we want people to start taking the information and using it in their life. So when we come from that mindset of being of service and grateful to be able to share our ideas and our gifts with an audience, it automatically puts us into a mode where you can see as I'm talking here, and then this just happened. My hands went to palms up, holding the ball. I just naturally start speaking like this when I put myself in the mindset of, how can I serve you?
I'm thinking about, I had a show dog, and her name was Lil Amber Pan. She was a Chinese Shar Pei.
Yes, I remember the pictures.
And she came with a microchip in her from Tuckermore Acres, and she was very expensive dog. And I didn't understand what show dogs were until I got her. And even though I wasn't showing her, she was bred to sit up and stare, and she didn't play around like a little puppy, even when she was a puppy. She was always best of show. She was always presenting herself to the last minute. She was always
on stage.
Yeah, with her big fat face, nose up, Chinese Shar Peis. You have to Google those people. Google those dogs. They're not people, but she was my fur baby.
They're like people.
She was my fur baby. About serving your audience and speaking to the organizer, here's the key of what you said. Does the organizer know who their audience is? Because the organizer may have no clue. Just invite and see who shows up. And when they show up, then I'm going to see their name, and then I'm going to present to them. Well, if you are a presenter working for someone else, I invite you to ask the presenter to take another step in to the guest lists. If you're the presenter and you have a way of knowing if you're organizing the event, who's showing up. Oh,
I'm reminding you, meditate.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Alexa. She'll tell me again in case I didn't listen the first time.
I'm reminding you, meditate.
And that's
This has
my
become
message.
a regular part of our show.
It is, yeah. I just let her go, let her roll.
Yep.
When you know who your guests are, think about, as you're speaking, what's on your mind, because I want to tell you all about this awesome tool that I have and what it does and how it's going to save your life and how it's going to make your business boom and how it's going to create a better connection. And as I talk about this, am I speaking to a room full of geeks? Am I speaking to a room full of doctors, lawyers, accountants, network marketers? Am I speaking to people for the first time that they've ever attended a seminar? This is their first seminar 101, how to sit in a seminar and how to take notes. Whomever I'm speaking to, as I am going to discuss my service, my product, my plan, that I've been doing this for so long and so knowledgeable at it, what is the language that I really need to use so that I'm received well? It's not just the story in my head that becomes stories of your mind, become the stories of your life. But if I know I'm speaking to Dr. Energy, I really best know the best way to speak to him to keep his attention. And if I can't know that because I just don't have the time, create your presentation so that you can do a quick eyeball scan of your audience, if that's all you have, and figure it out so that you can look at their age. You can look at, you need to know something about them. You have to be really skilled at this and speak to those people in the audience so that they will be receptive. And I think this is a very natural turn into nonverbal communication. It feels very natural to me because as we're presenting, we can just walk up on stage. You ever hear somebody say, wing it? Well, tell me how that works out for you.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to go into some nonverbal communication. I think we can touch on these. And that was a great tip. Thank you for that. Like really, really important. When you did this before, actually, you created a smile from a stance, and the smile made it so much more inviting. It was sort of like, I don't mean you were scary, but it's scary to look at someone. We're on Zoom and we watch people doing this. You know, we know you're not there, people. We know you're not present. We get that you're doing something else. And unless it's really important, be with it, please. Be with that moment.
Right.
Let people get a piece of you. Be of service so that they can feel your energy. Otherwise, don't bother attending. I know that's a little harsh, but you know, I'm me and I got to say that. So Dr. Energy, why don't you give a great demonstration of the smiling aspect like you did before? It made such a huge difference.
So basically it's just, as I'm sitting here, I'll do it again with the pyramid hands. So we want to feel, because this actually helps us feel confident, feel self-assured, which then we then project out to the audience. And then the audience feels that assurance and they project it back to us and becomes this entrainment field where we get in sync with our audience and we start to really connect. And this is one of the things that Catherine was talking about as knowing your audience and, you know, taking that extra step about getting to know who the audience is if the organizer doesn't, is tune in energetically, intuitively, whatever it is, to the mass consciousness in the room, however you want to do it. It's a little more of an advanced skill. And when you're speaking on stage, leave space in your presentation to connect, to receive those unspoken messages from your audience and let them come through your system and then speak on what needs to be spoken so that your audience can get the most. Another way of doing it, if you want to have an intermediate step in there, is ask your audience. Just do a little poll right at the beginning of your presentation. Here's our topic. What is it that you would like to know about? That's one way of doing it. Now, I know Catherine doesn't like to do that because she doesn't like to, we like to use what lawyers do. Don't ask a question you don't already know the answer to. But that's a whole other presentation. So we can be here on Zoom, on camera, whatever your digital platform is, and I can sit here like this. And I can sit here like this. Or I can be sitting here like this, still with a smile, but doing this. And they all convey different things, different information, a different communication. So be aware of what you're communicating and how you're communicating it.
Thank you. That was we're covering smile. You said something there that's pretty, so many things that were important before we go to the next nonverbal communication. Hold space, leave space. As a presenter, if you want to give your information because you have 2 minutes to do it and you don't allow some energy in between and you say, we're going right on, let's go right on to the next thing, number 2. Sure, you can hear that, but this is not a game show. And as you're presenting, if you allow some space, let it be a nanosecond, 1/1000. Let people digest that information. You will gain more fans. The next nonverbal communication we're going to talk about is open. And open refers to your body posture. Dr. Energy, take it away.
So we've covered some of this already today with having our palms up, having our shoulders back and down, chest up, and looking to the camera. This all conveys openness, not only to what we're saying, but what we're receiving back from our audience, that we're willing to receive questions and information from you. Not going to stand, versus if I stood up here, we all know this classic one. Now, standing like this with my arms crossed does not necessarily mean that I am closed off completely. For some people, this is actually a posture where they are considering the information you're taking and they're not quite sure yet. So I guess it's a little bit closed. However, if as the presenter I said, are there any questions while I'm standing like this, what do you think the response I would be looking for is? Basically, it's like, I really don't want your questions. I want to be done and move on to the next topic or end this presentation, versus, are there any questions? And then I look around the room. If we're live, if we're doing it here, it's just, are there any questions? And then pause. Now, when we are online with our presentations, we actually need to pause a little bit longer when we ask if there are questions, because it takes a moment for people to unmute themselves, turn their camera on, and then for the question to be asked. So we have to pause just a little bit longer, unless we have somebody moderating our chat or moderating questions who has them all queued up and is telling people, okay, you're next, be ready, and we'll call you by name. Then that can be a little bit more effective than if it's just you running the whole show.
Right. Take a little bit more time because we are on camera and other people are not always as fast as we are. Let's cover 4 more points.
Sure.
You did this before. We'll cover it again. So what happens when you see someone doing this? Why don't you talk a little bit about the lean forward?
Sure. So when we are there communicating, what have you ever been in a conversation with a really good friend or having a really intense conversation at a dinner party that you're just like right into it? How do we usually engage with that? We lean in just a little bit. It shows that we are engaged when we lean in. Now, we want to lean in still being open versus leaning in like this. So to show interest and that we really want to know what's going on, all we do is just lean in a little bit. We get closer to the person so that we can hear and take in all of the information that they're sharing with us. Now, if they do this and lean back as you lean in, you've leaned in too far. This is reading the nonverbal communication. So if you lean in and they lean back, then you need to lean back a little bit so that they will lean back in a little bit as well. So because everybody's personal space is a little bit different. So it would look like this. If you lean in and they lean back, you've gone too far. So they've reestablished their personal space. So if you lean back again, they're going to lean back in, but this relative amount of space stays the same. Now, there are other people who have smaller personal spaces, and if you lean in like this, sorry, wrong hand, if you lean in like this, they may lean in as well. And then you may be the one that leans back because it's encroached on your personal space. And personal space can vary from person to person, and especially from culture to culture.
Good point. And that is, at this moment, we're not necessarily talking about that on Zoom, but you can see people lean in and you can watch people lean back. That would be more of an in-person strategy. And the next strategy is an in-person strategy, but you live in a home, in a house, you live in a home, you live in a house with people, so that you can apply this not only to your presentation skills and moments, but you can apply this to the people that you live with and that you love, and watch if, it's not about not smelling good. They may step back because you're just in their space, like back off. So let's talk about touch, because we can talk about that in a presentation setting when we're at home, talking about dinner, talking about going outside versus inside, talking about bring it to your personal life. What happens with touching people?
Wow. So this one is really tough right now for those of us, especially for whom touch is a really important thing. Like your love language is physical touch, like for myself. So these times that we're living in right now, it makes it really challenging because there are a lot of people who are afraid of other people because of whatever. And so people are avoiding getting close to others, avoiding touching them. But sometimes when we're communicating with somebody, just a simple touch on the shoulder, or if we're sitting across from them and we lean in and we want to reassure them, a simple light touch on the knee or on the elbow, just say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm listening and I'm here. That can be reassuring, and it can communicate so much through touch. And when we touch, and especially when we hug, we get oxytocin being produced in our system. Oxytocin is the hugging drug, as we call it. It helps us feel relaxed and warm and welcome and most of all, connected to each other. So touch is super important. Obviously, on camera, online, we can't do it. We have to convey, this is where facial expressions and the tone of our voice comes into play so much more. How we use our voice, the pauses, giving the other person just time to be quiet and be quiet and integrate the information or collect their thoughts and then connect with us again.
That's where I really want to get that piece of equipment. I would have done some great voice reverberation there. I would have done some great things with that. Let's talk about, okay, so we covered.
Yep. Before we go to the last one, to the next one, I would like to just talk about Cindy's comment there about how to show interest on camera when you're taking notes, because even if we were in person, we would be taking notes. So why don't you answer that one first, and then I'll comment on it.
Sure. You can use a tool that takes the notes for you. You could hit record on your phone, and you could say you're taking notes, I guess. I'm not saying it's a tough one, Cindy, but which negates that. I prefer to be fully present. And if I see an opening or an opportunity where I'm not speaking or there is something else going on, I take a very quick action. So I might take that note and connect with that person in real time at that minute. And I've got a super way of doing it. I try not to take my focus off people, but that's not answering your question. You said, what about taking notes? So I'm giving you, I utilize my time. I'll go to LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever, or Instagram, and I'll connect with you, and I'll hit 2 buttons and I'll do it as quick as possible. And that will remind me later what I have to do. Would you like to answer that before we go to the next 2?
Absolutely. So when we are taking notes, obviously in person, it's different than on camera or online. So if you are live in a room, in a presentation of 5 people, 10, 100, 1,000, whatever it might be, as a speaker, I love seeing people taking notes. It tells me that they're engaged and that they're finding the information that I'm presenting useful. When we are online, if it's only 1 or 2 people, you can tell the person giving the presentation. If I'm not always looking at the camera, I'm just taking notes. 1 second. You can tell the person that you're taking notes. If it's a larger group and you're on, for instance, in gallery view, it's not going to be so obvious to the speaker that you're taking notes and not looking. And in fact, you can even turn your camera off while you're taking notes, and then that becomes even less of a problem. So it is, and as a speaker or as a presenter, sometimes it does feel like we are speaking into a void when we're online, because it is hard to gauge the responses that we're getting from people. Do your best. And, you even as you were taking notes, you can be with your head down, and as you're listening and writing, and the presenter makes a particularly poignant or important point, you can be nodding your head as you're writing, and then they get the idea that you're really finding the information important. So being able to take those notes is good. And we also know that when you actually write stuff down physically with a pen on a piece of paper, it stimulates our brain differently than typing on a keyboard or just trying to remember it. We actually recall things better when we physically write things out with a pen and paper. So I hope that answers your question, Cindy.
Right. And maybe, Cindy, the first question should have been, in what context are you asking the question? If you are in the audience of a presenter who's probably not able to even look at the gallery view anyway, or if you're speaking to 2 people, or if you're in a breakout room, or if you're one-to-one with someone, the context of how you're asking that would have probably been the first place that we should answer the question, instead of us giving you scenarios.
We covered both. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And if it's a networking group, then you can just say, I'm taking notes, everybody. Okay. So we're going to cover 2 more. So in nonverbal, we spoke about smile, open, forward lean, touch. Now we're going to talk about something that can be inappropriate.
I'm just petting people.
An inappropriate eye contact. This can backfire. So Dr. Energy, why don't you give us some appropriate and inappropriate eye contact? Yep.
How's this feel?
Yep. It's not so cool.
Versus.
Yeah, much better.
And then you can look away at a screen and look back, because it's not natural to just stare at the screen, at your camera, unblinking. It's natural to look off to the screen. Sometimes when people are looking in different quadrants as well, that's how they recall or synthesize information. So oftentimes when I'm speaking, I will often look up to one side as I'm trying to recall or put together and synthesize information, and then I will look back at the camera. It doesn't mean I'm disinterested. It doesn't mean I'm looking at something, distracted by something else. It's just simply the way I'm processing information. Some people, they'll drop their head and look down and then look back up. Some people will look off to the side and then look back to the camera. And it looks more natural when we just let ourselves go with it than if we start thinking about it and that we have to stare at the camera all the time. And I never look away from the camera. I'm just staring at the camera the whole time. It actually kind of becomes a little bit uncomfortable. So just play with it. The biggest thing is, again, the mindset that we go into with it, delivering the best information for our audience, being the best servant of the information to our audience that we can be. And then these things will start to become more natural, and we won't even be thinking about where to put our hands, where to look, where not to look, all of these things.
Thank you. Let's cover the next one, and then in lieu of time, we'll give a few more pieces of information and share some things with our audience.
Absolutely.
So eye contact can make other people feel uncomfortable. So realize that it's not just how you feel, it's how they're feeling. If you're looking down at someone, perhaps they're a child, or you're looking up to someone, think about the level at which you are at when you make that eye contact. So here's our last tip. Nod. Let's talk about the nodding of the head. You covered it. It was fantastic. What happens when, right. All right.
Oh, we're not at a rock concert. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Let's do a quick demonstration about nodding, and then let's go into some of our messaging.
Sure. So nodding is just simply, as I was talking about when I was answering Cindy's question about taking notes, when a particularly important point is, as you're writing notes. So I'm going to pretend like I'm writing notes. If I just kind of nod my head like this, it means I'm agreeing with what the speaker is saying. And so the speaker or the presenter gets to know that they've made a point and that you're understanding it or appreciating it or getting it. So it's a sign of interest. So even this is another thing, even if you're not taking notes and you're sitting there and you're, as I said, we have to give more demonstrative actions and behaviors of our facial expressions and our voice to indicate connection and interest with our audience or with the speaker as they're speaking to us. Nodding is one of those things. We actually have to make it a little bit more obvious than we might otherwise if we were in the room live with the person. So just giving a nod or a shake of the head, if you don't agree, that's good. That's good communication as well. So using that as a way to communicate on camera is really good as well.
And I want to applaud Cindy for asking the question about taking notes, because Cindy, I believe when you were asking that question, you were thinking about how is it going to look to others? And that's a really good position to be in. What will it look like to other people? Make a conscious effort at first to acknowledge your own body language. And that's what you're wondering. What will it look like if I'm constantly doing something like that? Or whatever, it doesn't have to be constant. You're a very genuine person and people will know that, and they'll know that about you. So these suggestions that we have today are sometimes you're with people that don't know you, and it's the first impression. And when you're making a first impression, there are things that we do at a first impression than we do when I'm speaking to you, Dr. Energy. I'm taking notes all the time. Cindy, I take notes when I speak with you as well. And that's a compliment. So there are many times that gesture means you're saying so many things that are so valuable. And thank you for that. Let's go into some of our announcements and some of our things that we've done this week. You've been dropping things this week, haven't you?
It's been a full week. That's part of how our oops happened, is because we've had so much stuff going on this week. So first of all, we had over on our YouTube channel, we had a live streaming podcast with Emily Milling this week, and that we're going to actually take the audio from that and make it an audio only podcast as well, but it's over there on YouTube if you want to watch that. It's a great, she's dropped some great information about marketing and branding yourself and connecting with your niche, who your avatar is, all of that type of information. And especially about if you're interested in getting into podcasting, she has a great program starting up soon. In fact, her cart is now open and till Sunday night over at the what was it called again? Podcast Rocket. We'll drop a link in the comments in a moment, and you can check that out if you like. So that's over on our YouTube channel. Our latest podcast episode was also dropped today, and that was with Cheryl Plouffe. We had her on the podcast a few episodes ago, and then we did our original first live streaming podcast on YouTube with her a couple of weeks ago. And we've taken that audio and put it into a podcast episode. So you can check that out. And we talk about 20,000 hours. So Catherine, why don't you tell a little bit about that 20,000 hours?
Yeah, Cheryl Plouffe's amazing. So Cheryl and I met at a networking group at Cowie, thanks to Cowie. And Cheryl really pushed us without saying a word. When we met Cheryl, she offered to be our first live YouTube guest. And we said, we better get this going. So here's someone who's had over 20,000 hours of broadcasting and live streaming. And she came on to our very first hour. That was such a milestone for us. We will never forget that. And here's how it happened. Cheryl said, I'd love to be your first guest. Yes. And by her 3-letter word of yes, We didn't scramble, but we worked pretty hard to get that happening. And now we have a YouTube channel. And all of this because I joined Cowie because Cindy invited me. Cindy, look at what you did. That was amazing. And Cheryl, the power of connecting. I have to say thank you. And thank you, Dr. Energy, for running with us on all of this. We ran together. So go over and listen to Cheryl Plouffe and what she has to say.
It was wonderful. And again, 20,000 hours of live television broadcasting, plus how many hours she's done on her YouTube channel and online with teaching. It's just to be able to connect with a resource like Cheryl is truly incredible. And we're so honored and grateful for her coming on our show in literally our first hour of YouTube live streaming. So thank you very much, Cheryl. We really appreciate you.
Yes. Dr. Energy.
I'm going to drop Emily's link for Podcast Rocket in here.
Okay, please do. And after you do that, I'm thinking, is it time for coffee?
Just about.
All right. Yeah, I every week I have a 12 o'clock meeting that I go to, and this is how we stay on schedule, on time.
Absolutely. So, buy me a coffee. Our channel is completely community, 100% community funded by you. If you'd like to buy us a coffee, buymeacoffee.com/BU network. You can buy us one coffee, several coffees. It's entirely up to you. If you would like to get a little bit more, we also offer a $10 a month membership where we're going to be putting exclusive content only for our members in there on a regular basis. We're actually in the process. We've recorded some of that already, and we're recording more as we speak. And we're going to be sharing that for our members only at buymeacoffee.com/BU network. And if you want to go even deeper with us and want to go, 1-on-2 with us, because you get both of, remember, you get both of us, not just one of us. We have there a coaching call option for $75. Or if you want to pay more than $70, if you find it really valuable and you want to pay more than $75, you can do that as well. It's entirely up to you.
I love that about Buy Me a Coffee. You can go in there and make any price that you'd like. And that's kind of cool, because you just might want to do that for someone else if they have Buy Me a Coffee, if you didn't know about that. So, Dr. Energy, we covered a lot of ground today.
We did. We really did.
Awesome. I love these education moments. I'm listening to you when you're speaking. And today I had a real treat. I really got to listen to you. And I thought for our audience, it would be nice if they had the continuity of you doing the demonstration and me asking the question, so we could give an example of a presentation.
It was a fun, different way to do it. I liked it.
Yes, me too. And to those of you who are watching, if you do presentations with two people, pick your position so that the other person can shine and the audience can understand what information they're getting, what they're getting from the narrator or the interviewer, and what they're getting from the other presenter. Thank you for allowing us to do that live here with you today.
Thank you. And if you want to connect with us in any way, shape, or form, b-u.network/connect. And we'll see you all next week for multitasking.
Oh, yeah. Like, what are we doing next week?
What do we do? Of course, we're doing multitasking. Same bat time, same bat channel right here. Where we're going to be talking about multitasking. Cindy, not just for you, but especially for you.
Yes.
And especially for you. I keep using but. I got to say I was doing the pointing the finger.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll talk about this now.
Multitasking. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for your comments as well. Buy Me a Coffee is awesome.
Ciao.
Ciao. See you on the other side.